Welcome. I'm Eric Fleming, host of A Moment with Eric Fleming, the podcast of our time. I want to personally thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like what you're hearing, then I need you to do a few things. First, I need subscribers. I'm on Patreon at patreon.com/A Moment with Eric Fleming. Your subscription allows an independent podcaster like me the freedom to speak truth to power and to expand and improve the show. Second, leave a 5-star review for the podcast on the streaming service you listen to it. That will help the podcast tremendously. Third, go to the website, momenteric.com. There you can subscribe to the podcast, leave reviews and comments, listen to past episodes, and even learn a little bit about your host. Lastly, don't keep this a secret like it's your own personal guilty pleasure. Tell someone else about the podcast. Encourage others to listen to the podcast and share the podcast on your social media platforms because it is time to make this moment a movement. Thanks in advance for supporting the podcast of our time. I hope you enjoy this episode as well. Hello, and welcome to another Moment with Eric Fleming. I am your host, Eric Fleming. And today is Throwback Day. Yeah, so like 5 years ago, around this time, I was driving around in my Uber. I was Ubering, right? I was doing my thing. And Donald Trump had tweeted something. I can't remember exactly what, but he had tweeted something. And it got me upset, whatever it was. So I decided to record it. I had found this app called Anchor, which would allow me to record stuff and create a podcast out of it. And so I did. And at that time, it was about about 30 minutes or so, or whatever. And then, I thought about going back. Maybe I'll do that next year, but I thought about going back and looking at what the original podcast was. But I think it was more or less just kind of me introducing myself to people who did not know me, and to kind of let friends know that I was doing this podcast. So that was July 1st, 2019. And as I'm recording this now, it is July the 4th, 2024. So happy 4th of July to everybody that's celebrating. I hope you understand that this possibly could be our last one as we know it. So that's why, it's the 5-year anniversary, I guess. And I just wanted to go back to the roots, right? So Grace will not be on the show today. There'll be no guests. It's just going to be me. Now, if y'all turning off the podcast at this point, going on to something else, shame on you. For everybody else, this is a throwback. This is how I got started doing this. And I'm in the midst of trying to raise some money to get to Chicago so I can cover the convention. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit, um, of what kind of show that might be. Because this has been a heck of a week. So this is literally a week from, as I'm recording this, a week from the first presidential debate. And again, I'm going to get into it in more detail. I needed to process some things and hear what the fallout was going to be. But nevertheless, a lot has happened in those 7 days. Part of it is what I want to get started with, and the reason why I said what I said about this is going to be the last 4th of July as we know it, is because the U.S. Supreme Court has basically said that there is one human being that is above the law. And that individual is the sitting president of the United States, whoever that president might be. Right now, it's a guy named Joseph Robinette Biden. This time next year, it may be a guy named Donald John Trump. And so the court ruling on a case that was presented by Trump's attorneys to basically try to get him out of 2 cases, the documents case and the January 6th case, which is probably more important of the 2, right? So Trump has been trying his best to delay justice, and the Supreme Court has been more than willing to acquiesce and assist him in delaying the process. So they ruled that there are certain actions that the president can be immune from if it's considered official. Now, they didn't really define official, nor did they really define unofficial. They basically said it's up to each court whenever a case comes forward and those prosecuting any crimes to establish if it's official or not, regardless of motivation, because motivation cannot be a factor. If you knew that the person sitting as president of the United States wanted to commit a crime, you can't submit that as evidence. It has to be the act itself. And whether that act falls under the purview of being, quote unquote, official. Which, if you have criminal intent, you can pretty much be creative in pulling that off. A lot of examples were used in the oral arguments. The scariest one was, could a president order a Navy SEAL team to take out his opponent. Based on the ruling that the Supreme Court gave, 6-3 majority, by the way, the 3 liberal justices dissenting, and 1 conservative judge, even though she was in favor of it, tried to set a few parameters. According to that 6-3 vote, yes, you can. Si se puede. Yeah. I think I said, yes, we can, but you get the point. This is utterly ridiculous that we have gotten to a point in American history that those who want white supremacy to be maintained have pulled out all of the stops. And I shouldn't say pulled because they're still pulling. And I'm going to get to that in a second. That they feel that they've got to have a president who needs to have a level of immunity to carry out this mission. And it's not just white men. You have to be Christian. Can't be a white Muslim. Can't be a white Jew. You have to be a Christian. So a white Christian male. That's and preferably Protestant. Although I think they're going to give Catholics a pass. They buy in. But preferably a white Protestant male. You want them to have all of the power, right? And all of the stuff that has happened in the Burger Court, in the Warren Court, this court, the Roberts Court, has been doing its dead level best to reverse or eliminate altogether the oath that they took to uphold the Constitution, the lies that they told when they testified to Congress about no one is above the law. Well, we see what the truth is. Now, they did it in a gambling sort of way, but not so much, because they kind of figured that the current president wasn't of the character to test this out. I don't think they would have made this kind of a ruling if Barack Obama was president. Maybe, because he has character. I know they better not have done it if I was the president. And I'm just being honest with you. I'm just being honest. I just think that, if you really are going to go there, then let's go. Right? If you really want to give the president unfettered authority. I know Richard Nixon is spinning his grave right now. He is probably at the gates of hell, like, let me back up. I got robbed, man. Why couldn't I have this Supreme Court when I was president? There wouldn't have been a Watergate. There definitely wouldn't have been a resignation. There definitely wouldn't have been, maybe it had been a vice president for it, but wouldn't have been a president for it. I mean, just think about that. Just imagine if this court was around when Richard Nixon was the president and all the stuff he was doing. He was literally getting the CIA to stop the FBI from investigating him. He had two law enforcement agencies, or he envisioned two law enforcement agencies fighting each other so he could stay in power. That is what the Supreme Court just opened up for the next president, I guess. Or the next president that lacks moral character. So, people that are listening, people that I know y'all don't think for some reason, and most of the people that listen to this podcast don't think that way, but just in case somebody tunes in and they're kind of like, well, I don't know why, brother, you keep railing about politics and why it's important. This is why. Because one election in 2016 set this in motion. They've been working on this for like 25 years, maybe longer. And white supremacy has been around since the beginning of the nation. But this effort, the wheels have been in motion for 25 years, at least. And it's being rewarded. And it takes time, right? The Southern strategy that the Republicans wanted to pull the Dixiecrats out of the Democratic Party, they started in 1968. And they didn't achieve what they wanted to achieve until 1980. Right? So it takes time. And they're willing to play the long game to maintain. We are like, oh man, well, they didn't change nothing like, during his term. So, it ain't reversed everything. So we just going to go with somebody else. If you're looking to politics for instant gratification, especially considering the history of oppression that you, as black people, or anybody else in this country that's not white Protestant male, you're in it for the wrong reasons. Just like people that jump into the stock market to try to get instant wealth. That's not what it's about. You can do it, but it's about the long game. And Taraji P. Henson said it best on the BET Awards. It's time for us to start playing chess, not checkers. We need to understand that we are under attack. We are at war right now. I'm going to read this. It says, in spite of all this nonsense from the left, we are going to win. We're in the process of taking this country back. Our side is winning. We ought to be really encouraged by what happened yesterday, referring to the Supreme Court case. We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be. Now, the guy who said that was a gentleman named Kevin Roberts. And I think we need to highlight this dude as much as possible. Kevin Roberts is the president of the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative think tank. It has been around for a long, long time. He is also the president of the Heritage Action, which is the lobbying arm of the foundation. So it was like two women had these separate jobs, and he came in and got both of them. Right? And he is the guy who is overseeing this thing you may have heard that Taraji talked about, and you may have heard this in passing or on the news or something, called Project 2025. I've mentioned it on the podcast. Other podcasters have talked about it. This is a 900-page document that is supposed to be the blueprint for the next conservative, quote unquote, / I should say, Republican president to follow. "900 pages. And I've highlighted some key points. The one that kind of jumps out at me as a black person more than anything is the getting rid of 50,000 federal employees. Because I know that the biggest employer of African Americans in the United States is government. So I'm willing to bet that the overwhelming majority, an ungodly number of those 50,000 plus people, are going to look like you and me. They're going to be black folks. So we're going to kick 50,000 or close to 50,000 black folks out of federal service. Because he said on a talk show that there's a loyalty test. And he was being pressed on it because Michael Steele, former RNC chairman, asked him, if my dad wrote a check to a Democrat, would that be grounds for him to be fired from his federal job? And Roberts pretty much said yes. So that's where we are. They've been interviewing people all this time, all year. It may have been longer than that, but they definitely this year, they have been interviewing people to fill these jobs. Because their idea is that on January 20th, 2025, this plan kicks in. Because they're banking on, based on Mr. Roberts' statements, that Donald Trump's going to get reelected. But when he said, we're at war, this is the Second American Revolution, bruh, y'all think these folks are playing with you? Or y'all think this doesn't matter? It says it will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be. Meaning, y'all don't get violent. these Republicans ain't going to get violent. But we know that's a lie because January 6, 2021 proved that. They're going to get violent. And they may get violent before the election. I mean, just keep watching what your local legislature is doing. Keep watching what your local city government is doing if it's not democratically controlled. Because what the Supreme Court ruling did and all of the other things that they're trying to do, they're opening the door for them to literally kill us and not have any repercussions. I want y'all to think about that. And while y'all ruminating on that, I'll catch y'all on the other side. Hello, this is Eric Fleming, host of A Moment with Eric Fleming, and I need your help. We have an opportunity to cover the Democratic National Convention in Chicago this August, but I need to raise some money. So I need you to go to GoFundMe.com/help a moment with Eric Fleming broadcast from DNC 2024. That's GoFundMe.com, help a moment with Eric Fleming broadcast from DNC 2024. Thank you so much. All right, and we are back. So, y'all thought about what I just told y'all? Y'all understand that I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this literally could be our last 4th of July? When the people who are in power or seeking to attain more power are willing to do any and everything to shut this down. You know, the other side, a lot of them use crazy, wild conspiracy theories to stir their base up and get them motivated to vote. And they're going to show up. We, the folks that are supposedly intelligent, that are supposedly sane, are having conundrums and fits instead of being focused. Right? Like I said, this Project 2025 is set up for Republicans. It's not set up for us. And you have to be a certain Republican too. You can't be like a Rockefeller or a Lindsay or a John McCain. Well, you got to be out there. You got to be like Cruz and Hawley and Graham and Trump, all of them. You got to be out there. And you really got to be racist. That would help. You know, and I just wonder, how committed are you to stopping them? Doesn't sound like it, because you're still upset about what happened a week ago. Joe Biden, the President of the United States, did what most presidents do in their first debate. They got beat. And the analogy in sports that comes to my mind all the time when something like that happens. When I was young, Muhammad Ali was the greatest athlete in my mind ever. He was one of the few people that I literally wanted an autograph from. He was in, I think it was New Orleans. I want to say it was in the Superdome. And he was getting ready to fight this dude named Leon Spinks. Now, Leon Spinks had won the gold medal the year before, or at least a year before. It was 76 Olympics. I can't remember if the fight was in 77 or 78, the first one. Anyway, it's around that time. And, they used to show the fights on regular TV back then. It had to be a really, really big fight, like Ali Frazier or Thriller in Manila or, Ali Foreman. It had to be a huge fight. It was like this was supposed to be light work. Because I think Spinks, I don't think he had 10 fights as a professional at that point in time in his career. But when I, as a young man, saw Muhammad Ali on that television before any fight, any punches were thrown, they were just coming to the ring, I could sense he was not there. He was not on his game. And I told my dad, as huge of a Muhammad Ali fan that I was, he's going to lose this fight. And my dad looked in amazement, like, what do you mean he's going to lose? It's Leon Spinks. He's a nobody. I said, he's going to lose this fight. I can see it. He's not focused. He's not ready. And sure enough, Leon Spinks beat him. He didn't knock him out. It was a decision. But he clearly outboxed him. Ali was not on his game. So, for a brief moment, Leon Spinks was the heavyweight champion of the world. Until the rematch. Now that he had gotten the greatest fighter in history's attention, needless to say, Mr. Spinks didn't have a chance in the rematch. Right? And that's usually what happens in these presidential debates, especially when you have an incoming president. First time, whatever's going on, being president is more of a distraction. And then it's like after you see how bad you did compared to the challenger who has nothing to lose and everything to gain, even if it's a former president, which that was the first time in history, in televised history, that happened. A former president debating a sitting president. You refocus and you change whatever you did wrong the first time and you come out swinging, and it's usually not even close. Right? Ask Mitt Romney. Ask John Kerry. And some people say, well, John Kerry won both debates. Yeah. Okay. He didn't win enough if he pulled it off. I don't think he beat Bush the second time. He definitely didn't win the election. But there were a lot of factors in that. I don't want to diminish Secretary Kerry any, but it is what it is. George Bush did much better. So, when I'm listening to the donor class of the Democratic Party and the Washington wing of the Democratic Party, I should say the Potomac, because I don't want the good folks of Washington State to be confused with these folks. The Potomac class of the Democratic Party. go into panic mode. They were already uneasy about an 81-year-old man running for re-election to be president of the United States. Most of us were, to be honest. But once he said, yeah, I'm going to do it, that really wasn't his plan. But as long as Donald Trump is a threat, that old man's going to fight him. And the one thing that he keeps constantly reminding people is, I didn't think I could beat him last time. And I did. And I got more votes than any other human being in history to be president of the United States. So why would you doubt me now? Right? Well, the debate happened. And whether he had a cold or whatever, he still, he flying all over the place. He went to Europe twice in the span of a week. He literally went to Europe, came back, flew back out there. Came back in time to prep for the debate. He wasn't focused. Didn't matter you got a cold or not. The medication might mess you up, but you plow through that. He wasn't on his game. So now everybody's like, well, we need to get rid of him and blah, blah, this, that, other. And, they're throwing all these names. Governor Whitmer out of Michigan and Governor Newsom out of California. And got these old congressmen who are telling Joe Biden he shouldn't be president. And I'm sure there's constituents in their district probably going, you shouldn't be a congressman. Right? They running for re-election, but Joe can't. And they're just as old. Anyway. It's like, well, we're trying to maintain. Well, if you believe the polls, everybody running for Congress is polling higher than Joe Biden. So he's not a drag on you by any means. I think if the polling is accurate, which, I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but let's just say for once it is, then the numbers are showing that the American people are really, really concerned about Republicans being in control in the House and the Senate. So they're going to vote for whoever is the Democratic candidate in the House and the Senate races. He may not vote for Joe Biden. They're not as enthusiastic about voting for Joe Biden. They probably are. And if they had a viable third option, they might go with that. But since they don't, and if people saying, well, what about RFK Jr.? Okay, now he's saying he had sex with a child and ate a dog. He's already said he's got a worm in his brain. Stop. Don't bring his name up anymore, right? Other than a historical reference to his dad. He's not serious. It's not real. It's a binary choice, as people are saying, between the current president and the former president. Period. End of discussion. And the former president is bringing terror and chaos and the end of democracy. And the current president is doing the best he can to hold it together. Now, there have been some people who said, well, why don't he just step aside and let Vice President Harris take the lead. Well, the last time they had a convention in Chicago, well, not the very last time, but it was one time they had a convention in Chicago, and people were concerned about the current president, who was a Democrat, and the vice president ended up being the nominee. Richard Nixon got in. And all historians are saying that this guy, Donald Trump, is worse than Richard Nixon. So is that a viable option? Now, Kamala Harris, I think, is a better candidate than Hubert Humphrey. But Hubert Humphrey, during his day, was not a slouch. He was a former U.S. Senator for a long time in Minnesota. And he was a scrappy politician. Now, compared to Lyndon Johnson, not so much. But he could hold his own. And Richard Nixon beat him because of the images of a country that looked like it was in chaos, with the demonstrations, an unpopular war, loudmouth conservatives. You see where I'm going? A popular phrase that has been going on this week is past is prologue. It literally is in the Supreme Court chamber, I found out. Past is prologue. And if we don't understand that all of this stuff that is happening is leading to us looking at the 4th of July as a footnote in history instead of a day that we can take off and commemorate the founding of the United States of America, as we have come to be called. And I know there's some black folks that are like, Fleming, man, you know, it was the United States of America for them. We were enslaved, and Frederick Douglass gave this brilliant speech, and you know, Juneteenth was really more of our Independence Day and all that. And I get all that. Trust me, I feel everybody on that. But we are citizens of the United States of America, and part of the dynamic of being a citizen is that those slave owners wrote 2 incredible documents. The Declaration of Independence that basically said, hey, we don't want to be part of a monarchy. We want to do our own thing. Now, it said some other things about, you know, citizens have a right to get rid of tyranny, and we don't like the British siding with Native Americans, you know, as far as us trying to get more land and all that. I get that too. But the essence of that document was saying that men should not be subjugated to a king. And then the Constitution, which basically gave us a democratic republic. See, and, you know, I ain't got time. But I just, you know, people were talking about, oh, this is a constitutional republic. It's not a democracy, okay? Let's parse that. It is a democratic republic. That's why the terms used for the parties are Democrats or Democratic and Republican. The original Democratic Party was called the Democratic Republican Party. And the Republican Party equivalent was the Federalist. Then you had the Whigs show up, who kind of like the middle. And then the Democratic Republican Party just dropped the Republican part, and the Federalists picked up the Republican part, and what was left of the Whig Party, and here we are since 1860, pretty much. But this is a democratic republic because a republic is what the Romans had. A select group of people chose who would be the Senate. And out of the Senate came the emperor. And the modern day closest thing to that is the parliamentary system. The people elect the parliament, but at least the House of Commons anyway, but the parliament chooses, the majority party chooses the leader. We are not a constitutional republic. We're a democratic republic that has a constitution, but we're a democratic republic because the citizens choose who serves in the House and the Senate and in the White House and the state capitals and the city halls and the school boards. The citizens choose these people. People put themselves out there, they get voted on, they serve at the will of the people. The people decide it's time to change, changes will be made. In a republic, not so much. So that's why it's very important to pay attention to that language. Now, Julius Caesar, they killed him. And that's usually what happened to most emperors. In the Roman Empire, the Senate took him out. Don't think we want to go that route. Don't think we need to have a bunch of assassinations to change the dynamics of power. Don't think that's what America was set up to be. It was set up for all the citizens. Now, initially, it was only white male property owners. It eventually has evolved to once we got to 1972. And now anybody who's over the age of 18 can vote. Don't have to be rich. Don't have to be white. Don't have to be male. You are a citizen of this nation. At the age of 18, you can vote. And that argument was made, if I'm old enough to fight for my country, I should be old enough to vote for the commander-in-chief. Made sense. So, it's a democratic republic. And we do have forms of democracy in the sense that we have what we call referendums, where the citizens can put something on the ballot and vote for it. We do have that system, not at the federal level, but at the state levels, we do. We can put something on a ballot. If enough citizens say, hey, we want to vote on this, it's going on the ballot. But the people like Kevin Roberts and the people like John Roberts and Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and Tim Scott and Byron Donalds and Lindsey Graham and Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton, all these people don't want you to have that ability anymore. You don't fit in the club. If you're not a Protestant white male, you don't fit. They're tired of accommodating the United States of America to your desires and wishes. They have declared war on us. Now, I'm down with the bloodless part. We just vote all these SOBs out. I wish it could be a clean sweep. I wish every Republican would lose every election. It's not going to happen. But all we need is the White House and the majorities. And all this hand wringing that's going on about who should be the presidential nominee, I hope that energy is focused, because if you achieve majorities in both the House and the Senate and in the White House, and maybe a few state houses that's happening at the same time, then it's time to get some stuff done. It's time to make it so that this never gets this close ever again. That this is completely over. I'm asking a lot for folks to believe that white folks will handle white folk. I really am. I'm asking a lot of myself. However, it is what it is. There are some white people that don't buy into this BS. They just need to show up and show out, like we've asked black people to do, like we've asked Latinos to do, like we've asked Asian Americans to do. We need them to show up and show out in a huge way, even bigger than last time. Because it's time for us to tell our cousins, our nieces, our nephews, grandkids, in-laws, wherever a human being falls in your spectrum, enough of this BS. We want this war to be over November the 5th. They want it to no, we want to shut it down. You want a bloodless war? We can have it. But it'll be over November the 5th if everybody shows up and shows out. I mean, everybody. Because usually the role is, as a black person with a microphone, oh, you got to get the black people to come out. No. And normally the demand was, I just need 1 out of 4 of y'all white folks show up on our side. 1 out of 4 ain't going to get it. We need to send a message. I need 3 out of 4. I'm asking a lot. But this moment demands that. It's time for people to stop playing games. Folks are saying, oh, the Democrats, they're not going to do all that stuff they're talking about, blah, blah. The Republicans ain't going to do nothing that you want. They're going to do whatever their class wants. And I want you to understand another delineation that's out there. And I kind of mentioned it, I think, on the last podcast, but if I did, I'll re-emphasize it. There's a difference between the billionaire class in America and the business class. There's a difference between a dude that's worth $1 billion and a CEO that gets paid $100 million. And most black folks are like, well, what do you? Not really. Now, the CEOs may want to hang out at the Billionaires Club, but when it comes to politics, there's a difference, especially this election. You got the Harlan Crows and the Koch guy, now that his brother's gone. You know, Summer Reds, all these other billionaires that are doing what they want to do. Heirs to fortunes, giving money to Donald Trump because Donald Trump's in their mindset. He's not in their class, but he's in their mindset. Living off the largesse of previous generations. But those people who have worked their way up, going to the right business school, getting into the right corporation, and applying all the right principles of leadership to ascend, to make too much money to be a CEO. But that's what they're paying them. Those folks don't buy into the Trump business. Now, once we get through with this on November the 5th, November the 6th, we got to come back to the business class. We say, thank you for not supporting that evil man. Now you have to check your ego at the door and figure out how you're going to stop charging all these ridiculous prices so you can keep your lofty salaries. Because we like eggs, we like food, we like to drive, we like to have a house. Could we turn down the corporate greed? If not, then we're going to have to do it. And you don't want us to do it. Speaking about the government. We want you to regulate yourself. Because the people that work for you are real people that really need to eat and have a place to live and car to drive and all this other stuff. They would like to take a vacation. They would like to keep their job even though they get pregnant, right? All these things. Would like for you to handle that yourself. But we'll deal with that on November the 6th. November the 5th, we need you to make sure that that evil dude and those folks that the billionaire class support doesn't get in. And eradicate as many of the people that support this evil dude. Keep them out of power too. Can't get them all. Like cockroaches, you can't get them all, but you can get enough where you ain't got to see them on a daily basis. Right? And I know some people are going to say, you compare them to a cockroach. But I don't have empathy or respect for anybody that declared war on me for no damn reason other than I'm black. And I don't agree with his political view of the world, no matter how dystopian it is. I'm not. You shouldn't go to war with me because of that. But because you declare war on me, yeah, I got the mindset like we had in World War II, where we had these incredible posters and depicted the Nazis as less than human, or depicted the Japanese as less than human, right? The Japanese army. You know, there were some Americans. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, the point I'm making is that I don't have to like you anymore. I don't have to respect you anymore because you declare war on me because I'm black. You declare war on me because I'm a Democrat. You declare war on me because I don't agree with your BS. I do not want to be under a dictatorship. I do not want to be under a monarchy. If I did, I would have gotten out of here and gone to England or gone to some African nation that had that setup. I'm not trying to be under a monarchy. I don't want to be a commonwealth of a monarchy. I don't even want that. I want to have what we got. And I want people to have the opportunity to pursue that position, including Kamala Harris. Whether it's in November or whether it's 4 years from now. But if we don't fight for this system, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't push for it, these folks are going to take it away. That is their sole mission. If you want to experiment with being under a dictatorship or authoritarian rule or a monarchy, do what you got to do. But for those of us who don't, those of us who like the fact that we've had only 46, 45 actual people to call themselves the President of the United States, that we've never had a president for life, that once the British Army was defeated, not only in 1770s, but 1780s, and in 1812, right? 1814. Once we shut them down, that should have been the last threat of the United States being under a monarchy. But these folks want to have a bloodless revolution. They declare war on us. I think it's time for us to respond. Stop bedwetting about Joe Biden having a bad performance. All eyes up front. I need eyes locked on the target. I need you to focus on the target. And I need you to eliminate the target. And you eliminate that target on November the 5th. Good? All minds and hearts clear? Until next time.